I might start with you, Josh, actually.
Okay. Well, my tattooing and the art that I like to do are both very similar in that, since as far back I can remember, fantasy artists like Drew Struzan and Frank Frazetta, and that's always been one of my biggest inspirations. And I also like to take those kind of lessons of composition and that the poster artists would use for these sci-fi films and stuff that we loved growing up. And that's a big factor in how I lay out my tattoos and just my art in general. So right now I'm going to flip the screen upside down, just doing a little digital portrait of a Sith Lord known as Darth Maul. And I'm going to flip this around real quick. See if we
would have been a bit embarrassing if we both went with the same style.
Yeah. So I just started laying down some of the base work, and when I do a lot of my digital art, I approach it the same way I do my tattoos. So I'll make like bring the brightness down real quick. I'll make have a digital stencil that I can work off of to keep everything in check. And then I've roughed in some of the basic colors just so I have kind of just a quick airbrush of where blocking in the colors, and then start just building on top of that and working from there. So similar to how a lot of us portrait artists will do, our portraits, work from one area across. I'll just start fine tuning, and as I go today, just be dialing it in and making it crisp and just having some fun with it.
Nice. I can't wait to check back in on that shortly. While I'm on that note, actually, you've done quite a bit of sort of digital art outside of tattooing for some pretty notable things too. Do you want to?
Yeah, I could share some. I'll give you. I came prepared. I thought you might ask about it, so I brought one with you into the room here. One of the coolest projects that I got to work on, and it was all just kind of a little bit of right place, right time. I got hooked up with a record company that does soundtracks on vinyl, and they wanted some artwork done for a couple properties. One was Yo Gabba Gabba, the children's show, which is kind of fun. And then and that led to another project to another, and then eventually, here you can see my cover for the Dark Crystal visual motion picture soundtrack, and it was all done on the iPad with some of Photoshop for some of the final stuff. But I did a whole gatefold interior, and all this stuff was painted pretty much the same way that I'm doing my Maul today, kind of blocking in like I would a tattoo. And so it was such an honor to do something for the Jim Henson Company officially, as an official product, and surprisingly, to be able to do it on the iPad is amazing because it's such a powerful tool that I pretty much use every single day now. But yeah, that was kind of a feather in the cap, pet project of mine to work on some of these record labels, artwork, and the Dark Crystal was just one that was an absolute honor to work on. I mean, it's one of those childhood movies that I both loved and was haunted by.
The dream. Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing piece of artwork, mate. And
thank you.
Actually, have a copy of that sitting inside my locker at work. It's up on the wall, so I get to look at it every day, which is great. That's awesome. Jack, I might come over to you now, mate. Let's have a little bit of a chat about your, I guess, your path as a tattooist and how long you've been tattooing for and where you tattoo, and a little bit about what you're working on today.
Cool. So like yourself, I'm based out of Melbourne. I come from a fine art background. Straight out of high school, went into art school, and
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I did a BFA, and it's one of those courses that's probably worth less than a loaf of bread, but it was a good excuse to have a studio space for 3 years and make a massive mess and nearly get myself kicked out. But yeah, you know, it's from that point, like I suppose in my mid-teens, I was doing graffiti and stuff like that, and that sort of moved into doing legal work with local councils. And then from that point, I started sort of working with one particular gallery and doing exhibitions with them, and then doing more professional mural work. Professional is a very loose term. Sort of just you know, making weird stuff on walls for people. Nothing really spectacular. Like looking back, it's pretty cringy, but you know, it is what it is. And then from that point, like once I finished up at art school, did a little bit of traveling, and then came sort of eventually just sort of said, fuck it, I'm going to start building a portfolio and finally, you know, pursue tattooing, because that was always sort of in the back of my mind and I'd always wanted to. And so, yeah, I came home, just, put the work in, was very fortunate enough to be offered a spot at a studio and did an apprenticeship. And yeah, here we are now. So it's all sort of led and come back full circle.
Awesome, Dan. That's great. That's great. I keep bumping my camera, so anyone who keeps seeing my Anakin Skywalker jump up and down, sorry about that. All right.
I'm working on stacks of MDF, so I'm shaking as well at points, I'm sure. So I'm not alone there.
Yeah, I just keep bumping it with my stool, but I'll do my best to avoid doing that. Carly, I'm excited to see this. Hello. Let's have a little bit of a chat about what you're working on. Is this your favorite theme? I do see you do a lot of it. So is this your favorite game?
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Anybody who knows me knows that I am absolutely obsessed with Fallout. I just really enjoy that kind of post-apocalyptic style stuff in general. And especially because it has that like kind of 50s vibe as well. Like I definitely jam with that quite a bit. And it's just like, it's a whole lot of like everything. It's got everything that I enjoy, like gnarly looking beasts and ghouls. And then, that post-apocalyptic vibe, 50s, like, you can't go wrong.
All the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. So I use it a lot in like my art as well. And like, it's my logo for my tattoo Instagram. And I've made like cosplays of like Fallout as well. Like I'm really into doing cosplay stuff. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, what are you working on? Let's have a look.
So I'm working on a sticker sheet, like based around Fallout. Since lockdown started back last year, basically, because like obviously all tattooers weren't able to work, had to figure out some way to fill in the time as well as make a little bit of money on the side. So I started making sticker sheets that were themed around different like pop culture themes to sell and stuff. And and it's blossomed into like something like quite big, which is awesome. Like I've made like a whole heap of like different theme sticker sheets that have all done super well. And I just want to keep like going with it. And it feels like mini little flash sheets as well. Like that's what I like about it too. So it's still like tattooy, but different at the same time.
I see you've been very busy.
You
always seem to be shipping goods to everyone. So that's awesome.
Oh, always. I feel like this whole lockdown, my whole life has literally just been like packing and shipping and making stuff. So it's been awesome to like still keep myself busy. I'm definitely one of those people where I don't know how to stop. And I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. My husband thinks it's a bad thing because he's always telling me off for not stopping and just chilling. But I don't know, I just like keeping busy, and I just like creating and like exploring different mediums and stuff.
Awesome. I can't wait to check out your sticker sheet in very soon. Mitch, that must be you.
That's me.
Welcome, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Let's hear a little bit about yourself, mate. Let's start with tattooing and how you got into it, and also what you're working on today. I'm excited to have a chat about this actually. You were right when you told me I was going to like it. So
Yeah, I hope you do, mate. Yep.
Do. Tell me about it, mate.
Yes.
Tell me about your tattooing.
All right. So yeah, I'm Mitch. I'm based in Melbourne at the Black Mark with Dan here. I'm also the co-owner of Free Spirit Tattoo in New South Wales in Australia. My entry into tattooing was probably a bit different to other people's. You know, I've always been doing artwork at home, very much in the style of what I've done today. Just like a nice black and grey pencil sketch, try to get as much realism as I can. And yeah, I approached a tattoo shop when I was about 20, so just over 10 years ago, and brought in a very similar style of artwork to what I'm doing now, which is kind of why I wanted to do this style. It's what got me into tattooing. And then, you know, if I'm going to be on reinventing the tattoo, then I thought I'll do something that's personal to me, and I have a lot of respect for reinventing the tattoo and Guy, as you know, Dan. So yeah, I thought it'd be a nice special thing to do. Yeah, but back to the start, getting into tattooing. Yeah, I approached the tattoo shop with these drawings, and yeah, my boss had a look over them and liked the look of them, and said, you know, there's not much work for you, but you're welcome to hang around if you like. And yeah, I heard that as a big yes, so I just didn't leave. And yeah, like 12 years later or something, I own the place with him, and it's only growing. And yeah, I'm really proud of that, and grateful for everything that tattooing's given myself and my family. It's a really cool thing. With my artwork, I've like I said, I stayed pretty true to what I used to do before I was tattooing, which is black and grey pencil sketches and cars. And yeah, anyone that knows me knows I love cars. I've got some tattoos of cars up on my Instagram and Facebook and that as well. That's kind of my jam. If someone says, what do you want to do? Then I'm tattooing a car. So I just spun the pop culture reference as far as I could to involve cars, and yeah, came up with this
Awesome.
little piece. Yeah.
That's cool. Yep. So what's in the piece? What's other than a
So,
Alfa Romeo?
I didn't want to do something that everyone else would do. I'm not going to come on here and tell you guys how to do color and all that kind of stuff. You guys are really quite good at that. So I went with Juan Manuel Fangio, an Argentinian Formula One driver from the 1950s. So what
made you choose him?
Well, I wanted an old school picture, and what I've done, I probably should state, I'm doing this as like a newspaper advertisement. So if you think of like a half-page newspaper ad, not so much for Fangio, but for Alfa Romeo in general. Yep. At home, I've got up on the wall there some old 1940s, 50s, and 60s newspaper ads from like Cadillac and Oldsmobile and that. And I love the slogans. They're all hand drawn. They're really cool. They're really, really old school, and they had heaps of character. And they kind of tell a story. So I wanted to have Fangio's success. You know, he was the most successful Formula One driver until Schumacher. He had five championships. He drove for multiple. Drove for multiple manufacturers. Just a cool thing. And the cars back then, I just loved the look of them, the photography, everything. There's so much character. You know, I don't know if you can see it there in the picture, but he's got his helmet with the leather sides on it. There's just a lot of cool textures and that. So I thought I'll go with an old school picture because I want to do an old advertisement. And then I thought I'll have to do Fangio because he was the man, and that's who they would use back in the day. Myself and my dad actually came up with a couple of little slogans that I thought were cool. And awesome. So I've had fun, not only from an artistic point of view, you know, the technical side of it, but also the story behind it, and kind of making my own advertisement, which has been a lot of fun. And I thought, yeah, it's advertising, it's sport, you know, it falls in that pop culture. So yeah,
ticks
I'm
all
stoked.
the boxes in terms of pop culture. Yeah, no,
I hope so.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, well done. That's awesome.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Well, I haven't started painting yet, so I'm sure you guys have probably all started ticking along. I haven't, so I'm going to start painting. I think like I said before, I struggled with with oil painting. I don't know how much oil painting you guys have done. I know with some of the guys I've worked with over the years, exceptional oil painters. And I always used to work with pencil a lot. I always like to work with particularly coloured pencils. I used to do a lot of coloured pencil portraits and using a lot of Prismacolors and things like that. And I always found it heaps of fun. But I wanted to start to get into oil painting a little bit more and just, I guess, challenge myself. And I find it helps with my tattooing, especially with the style of tattooing I do, being sort of that. I'm not going to say it's hyper realistic, but definitely that kind of painterly realism, and I find it's helped a lot with that. So what I did essentially with my painting is, I mean, you see a lot of people, you know, they'll get a rag and some turpentine, you know, they'll start to block everything in with a rag. I know Sam Nugent, Australian tattooist, great guy, great painter. His painting tutorials or live things he's done over the years are awesome. But I wasn't confident enough to start blocking things in after having such a big break from oil painting. I hadn't really done any oil painting since late in high school, which is longer ago than I care to admit. But I started this one by actually sort of sketching it in with a pencil, just to give me some clear lines and margins. And I know it's not something that a lot of people probably do, but I think it gave me a bit of confidence. It was kind of worked like a stencil for me, which was really cool. But I didn't want to get, I think I mentioned at the start that I didn't want to get bogged down in all the fine details and everything with this painting. After not doing oil painting for so long, I just, I was worried I was just going to sit there and sort of spend so long, you know, working through the eye here or places like, you know, trying to put every little eyelash in, that I was going to sort of, I don't know, just get lost in it, which I think sort of where I'd ended up a lot in the past trying to get back into oil painting. I just got bogged down and wasn't really happy with it. I actually started one before this, which was quite a big oil painting, and I got about halfway through it, and I just bit off more than I could chew, I think, and ended up, I didn't finish it. In fact, I think I threw it out. I was pretty sad at the end of it. So I think getting back into oil painting for me, I did essentially what we're doing today, and I decided to, you know, why not choose something that I'm passionate about. You know, I think when I got back in, you know, the one I put in the bin was a skull, and I love tattooing skulls, and they're really cool. But I wouldn't say I was that passionate about it. I think it was just something that I sort of picked at the time.
So Dan, would you say now you prefer oil over working with acrylic then?
They're both pretty different. I do like it. I like it because I feel like it relates back to my tattooing quite well. You know, oil, you've got to be patient, you know, and that can be frustrating. But the more I work with it, the more I realise that, you know, it's okay to block things in and sort of walk away and come back. You know, whereas acrylics, with everything drying so quickly, and, you know, yes, that can be great when things, you know, you sort of, you know, paint something where you didn't quite want it or didn't quite work out the way you wanted it to. You know, you give it some time to dry and you're back into it straight away. So I think acrylics can be really forgiving in that respect, but I also think we all work in an industry that doesn't really allow for much in the way of forgiveness. So I think it's been I think I've swung a little bit more to oils now because it gives me a little bit more work time, and because I can be patient. And, you know, I just find it's a hard line to for me to balance in terms of being patient and then also not getting bogged down in minor, you know, probably details that I don't need to worry about right now. So I've got behind me, which I'll grab in a second, some other paintings that I did after this one. So the idea with this one was to set myself a time limit. I think I set 4 hours for this one, for all of them actually. Blocked it in with pencil and then just went about putting all my darks in first, or my blacks, and kind of approached this one the same way I approached tattooing essentially, and that was to sort of block things in and go through and refine and work down into some smaller brushes. And tried to keep them. The main aim with this painting was to try and be loose and free the whole time, and not to perfect it and to leave, you know, these larger areas of brushing in, you know, leave some texture in. And I'll grab some of these other paintings now. I'll grab the second one I did, which was probably only a couple of weeks later. Again, these were all done in the last probably year since March last year. I'll use the iPad for this one. So this one is Notorious B.I.G.
Oh, that's sick, man.
Oh, yeah. I remember watching you do that one.
So yeah, I did go live. That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
Oh, wow.
I think that live video was actually a bit scary because there's some pretty good tattooists that were also oil painters jumping on and watching me paint.
No pressure.
And it was, you know, my second oil painting in you know, 10 years or more. But it was really cool. So again, same time, but having the experience of the first one, again, I didn't quite have the confidence to sort of rough everything in straight with a brush or a rag. So very loosely sketched out some basic details. So I went through and sketched in roughly where the hairline is in a very, very light. It was just in a pencil actually. I would have used something else, but at the time it was a bit spontaneous when I started painting. Like, this is literally a bit of plywood that I had at home that I got the circular saw out and cut into random shapes and sizes and decided to start painting. So didn't necessarily have all that much with me at the time and were in locked in. So, but yeah, just sketched in the main lines that way, which, I mean, I've seen plenty of fine artists sketching using, you know, whether it's a charcoal or it's a marker or whatever but to get their basic shape in. But for me, obviously, you know, being a tattooist, it sort of made sense to, I guess, essentially set up with a stencil and just give you the confidence to just paint rather than stress about what everybody does or doesn't do, what the right way or the wrong way is. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a oil painting genius, but I'm keen to learn, so that's why we've done such. So again, I tackled this on the same way, 4 hours, just got through as much. I mapped in, I didn't even bother sketching out the whole face because I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere near it. So just the basic lines, and then went from there. I'll start painting in a minute and we'll go through sort of, I guess, a little bit more about that, but I always generally tend to start like, you know, blacks and work up to my lighter colours and went from there. The idea with this was, I'm getting a little closer, was to keep it pretty raw. As you get up close, there's some little details in there around the mouth and around the eye, but it's definitely sort of something that looks far better from the distance, which is it's cool. Try to just, again, work on keeping it loose, and being okay with it just finished like that. Like that sense is as far as we'll probably ever get. Moving on to the next couple, I actually painted these ones for my brother. That's actually two. Just try not to drop these. So again, these are about 4 hours each, and they are
Nice.
Dude.
that one.
That's sick.
Killer Mike
The man.
Jewel. Yeah, the man. And LP.
Yeah,
Whoa.
awesome.
Two
Oh,
very
damn.
different paintings. But lots of translucent layers and things in this one. So the sun's been on still see the edge of the face coming through on the edge here. There's a bunch of fun trying to work through those, and obviously the beard and all that sort of stuff. Cool. Two very obviously different skin tones, but both trying to keep the same sort of cool palette, so that they this way, so that they make a matching pair.
Love that rim light off the back of the hat.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I think they came up pretty cool. So it doesn't take too long to start to grow, I guess is the thing. If you're doing enough of it, they were definitely challenging, and I'll probably put it on further with them, but trying to keep it loose has sort of actually, definitely helped my painting. So, I'm looking forward to the next one. I've got a few to start. I'm still at a point with my oil painting anyway, where it feels like a big undertaking. I'm still definitely nervous about it, and I think that's okay. Just trying to make a start sometimes. It's not through lack of motivation, but just, I guess, still being very just nervous about the medium, but it's still good fun. So I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna start by I'm just gonna actually start on my painting over here by reinforcing some of these blacks. They've sort of grayed off a little bit. Some of the undertones from where I've sort of roughed everything in is coming back through a little bit now that it's all dried up, and I can have a look at it. It's probably not quite as well blended through here as probably what I would like between the edge of the hood and the shadow on the face. But while I get started on that, let's see what some of you guys are up to and seeing if you can go through your stuff in a little bit more detail. Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I'll go if you want to.
Name someone like, cool. All right, Mitch.
As well.
Yeah.
So my approach when I'm starting an artwork, because I work very much off the photo, I really like to find a good photo, and it's hard to pick, but I guess artists will understand that once you see something, it's just the right angle, it's the right contrast, everything just kind of lines up nicely. So I'll just see something and go, yeah, that looks really good. I like it, and it just clicks.
What drew you to that one? Is it the like sort of there's a lot of movement in that reference photo, you know, the dust coming off the wheels and everything is, you know.
Exactly. There's in focus, like sharp, like the wheel up here, you know, has got none of this kind of mist over it. It's got a cool effect over the tire, and just the amount of contrast. Yeah, the contrast and the detail. And to me, it just looked like you can just tell the photo is old. You know, it looks, it's got that nice look to it. Yeah, exactly. Yep. This is the first drawing I've done, and Dan, you'll know this, and anyone who knows me, I'm very new to technology, like my iPad and everything. Like it's, I've only been tattooing using an iPad since I got to the black mark. Before that, everything was just, the stencils were hand done, and my designs I'd just do by hand on paper. And that was always the way I worked. So this was the first one where I've actually kind of superimposed two images. I've made adjustments along the way. I did it on the iPad all by myself.
well,
big kid now.
That's from what, November 2020 thereabouts. When you started with us, so not all that long.
Watch out, world.
Look out.
Yeah, I just got the two. I had to make a couple of adjustments along the way. This kind of ghosted steering wheel didn't really work out with the script and that.
Kind of leads into the head a little bit too, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I actually drew sections on there because I make a lot of stuff up as I go, really. Like it's so
Well,
I
you
kind of work
tattoo
through.
like that too, right?
I do, yeah, yeah. That's exactly how I tattoo. I draw very different to, like, I haven't spoken to a lot of artists about it, but I think I draw very different to how most people do. So I won't do any guidelines for anything. I know I've done a little bit here on the glove and that, but I just wanted to do these gloves live because I thought they were they got good contrast and that. But other than that, like I'll start in the corner. I always start in the bottom left, and I'll basically look at the image and say, okay, say this little light section in the center of the wheel, right? And I'll kind of go, yep, and I'll put a little dot there. And then I'll just start drawing it, and I just look at it as I almost kind of picture what that looks like down here, and I just kind of put a little dot and then work. And so I'll have the wheel completely finished and nothing else done. And then I'll say this headlight starts, about that far down, and I'll put a little mark, and then I'll start on the headlight. I'll look at the back of the headlight and say, oh yeah, it drops below the edge of that wheel there. I'll put a little mark, and then I'll kind of work down.
And that's how you get your proportions. So you're doing your proportions in small amounts rather than blocking out the whole thing. In
really small amounts. So it will be completely finished, and then there will be nothing. It'll be like that. It'll just be completely done with nothing, and then I just kind of work off the angles and say that goes about 4 mil across and 1 mil up, and then boop, and then just kind of mark it out and go. And that's always how I've drawn from when I was a little kid. And I just kept doing it like that. And I guess it translates over into how I tattoo as well. It's a bit easier because I've got a stencil to work with, so you can kind of, work off that for your proportions, but I'll finish each section completely. I won't like get heaps of blacks in and then come back and do mid-tones and all that. I'll just work through and have it completely finished. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then from there, so in terms of what you're drawing today, once you've mapped that in, you can then go back in and add to it if need be, or do you prefer to have everything when it's done, that's it, and you walk away from
done.
it? Or
okay. I don't touch it again. So once I've done that part and I move on to the fender or the hood or something, I don't touch that wheel, and it's done. Awesome. So it's a fun way to work, and I guess I just, because I've never done different to it as I draw, I'm a little bit more comfortable in it. This one was definitely a little bit nervous as I went along and got to the interior, and you've got your angle of your car running this way and then your interior running that way. That kind of messed with my head a little bit because I haven't done a drawing like this in over 10 years, since I've been tattooing. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I think it's coming together well enough. Thanks, mate. Yeah, and then I can get to it later if you like as well, but I've added some script in that. I have a certain approach when I do my script as well.
Yeah, we might touch on that. Touch on that shortly. Definitely. Is there any other art you have been doing, say, since you've started tattooing, or do you find like tattooing is sort of sucks up most of your time?
Basic.
Or?
I just when I started my apprenticeship, Jason, my mentor, he just said, you just need to tattoo as much as you possibly can in like the first 5 years, just get experience. And so that's what I did. Any artwork I did was purely to be tattooed. And so I guess because I was doing everything by hand and drawing all the designs, I did keep my pencil on paper kind of skills with me. But this kind of fully finished artwork, I wouldn't do anything to this level, because obviously I'd just, I'd work off a stencil, I'd get photos. And if I was going to do like a morph kind of, I'll call this a morph for the sake of the conversation, a kind of tattoo, I'd just have a stencil of the car, a stencil of him. I'd kind of position it where they sit nice on the skin, and then I'd make up the section in between, which is kind of like when I came working with you, that was what I was doing.
Yep.
But yeah, as far as other mediums, it's pencil on paper and it's tattoos for me.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. You feel like focusing more on just tattooing has obviously sharpened your skills tattooing, like rather than sort of darting between a bunch of different mediums, or it's just sort of a comfort point? Or
I can't really say, because to know I would have had to have done other mediums, you know what I mean? But I definitely would like to expand my skills, but only in a way that relates to tattooing. I just love tattooing, man. So I
you
mean,
are definitely one of the most passionate tattooists I know. I don't know that there's many more tattooists passionate about the art of tattooing than you. So
thanks, mate. Well, yeah, my main thing and what I was always taught was it's just about the client. That's all that matters is if the client's happy. And so I've kind of chosen my medium, which is tattooing. If doing paintings will make me a better tattooist, then I'll do paintings, but only if it directly relates to tattooing, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So the outcome is always focusing on tattooing and providing like your customer with the best possible outcome.
All I want, that's the goal for me artistically, is to have a happy customer. So if I mean, I would like to know more about color theory. Like what I see you guys doing is amazing. The fact that you can pump that out in 4 hours and just have this great color theory is really impressive. And I'd like to be able to do that. So maybe going into other mediums will help me with that. But for now, I'm still, even though I'm more than 10 years into it, I'm still learning and still progressing. And I find also the iPad is the biggest learning curve for me right now, helping with my realism. Yeah,
awesome. We're all here for the same reason, which is great. I think learning, it is a constant learning curve. We're only going to grow, and if we're willing to grow, like we need to put the time in, and you're certainly doing that. That's for sure. It's actually quite refreshing to hear someone who's so dedicated to just tattooing that they're willing to do whatever they need to do outside of it, as long as it sort of improves their tattooing, because we all know it's not easy.
If I could interject, I just wanted to say it's refreshing to hear you say that that the iPad and digital medium is a bit of a handicap right now, and you wanting to invest the time and to learn that. And it's that kind of thing, like not being I guess there's a big theme tonight of not being afraid of new mediums. And
well, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, everyone was trying to convince me to get onto iPads, but I guess I was just a bit stuck in my ways, and it was almost a case of the ain't broke, don't fix it. And I was, my customers were really happy with their tattoos. I was really happy with the tattoos I was doing. But then the more you go to an expo, you see people doing these tattoos, watching you guys tattoo in real life, and just wanting to keep upping my game. I thought, no, this is definitely a step I'll have to take. Like I had my iPad, as you know, Dan, just in the box. I hadn't taken it out for a year. I got it and then never used it. And I'm like,
Mitch also doesn't rock a case. He likes to live dangerously.
Living on the edge.
No cases, no screen protectors, nothing. Just goes.
Oh my god!
You're begging for it, mate.
Yep. But
God damn.
I'm definitely open to these new things now.
Like a case.
Never that. But yeah, as long as it translates into helping the tattoo outcome, I'm open to it.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome.
I was the same with coil machines and rotaries and all that kind of stuff. I was on Mickey Sharps for so long, and then I'm like, we had an artist, Brett, who joined our team at Free Spirit, and he was on rotaries, and we were all on coils, and we said, give him a couple of months, he'll be on these coils, and then after a couple of months, we were on rotaries. So, it takes a big push for me to do things, but when I do, yeah.
Hey Mitch,
I get
I know that
definitely.
Guy had recently written a chapter with another artist on Procreate and the reinventing canon. So I'll have to you'll have to check some of that out. It's a good
Yeah,
that'd
synopsis
be-
of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I'd definitely be open to learning all that. And yeah, just as a side note, just on a personal note, this is just so cool for me to be doing this because, that reinventing the tattoo was what Jason, my mentor, gave me as the tattoo Bible when I was starting to tattoo. He said, just, you've got to work on this. Everything in this book is spot on. And it was really, I'd read it before I'd have a big challenging tattoo coming up, like doing my homework. So yeah, just want to thank you guys for having me on. It does mean a lot to be part of it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if
definitely-
Guy will be able to hop on right now tonight, but he will definitely be watching later.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
You're definitely the first person I thought of. This idea sort of all come up. I was like,
I saw your message and I was just a kid in the candy store, man. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's
couldn't
awesome.
believe it. Yeah.
It's great to have you on board. That is for sure.
Thank you.
Jack, how you going over there, mate?
Yeah, good man. I've just laid in a bunch of undertones yesterday, and then sort of blocked in the main colors, and now I'm going back in and layering some more tones and having a bit of a play with colors. So
We're working with Prismacolor.
yes, yeah, primarily. Usually, once I sort of get a piece to a point where I'm happy with it, I'll then go in and refine it a bit, and even sort of retouch some stuff with acrylics and inks and stuff like that as well, to sort of tighten it up or to do loose elements like background stuff. So I'm always wanting to vary things and experiment a little bit here and there, even though like I know, things, I like things to have a certain sort of polished look. It's part of the having, as we all sort of have a little bit of OCD. I tend
Absolutely.
to feed that beast just as much as everyone. But going back with what you were saying with oils, man, I think it's oils are a wonderful opportunity to step away from the time pressure and that need for perfection that comes with tattooing, and to allow yourself to loosen up and to experiment. So I suppose in my own little way with the colored pencils, I try and do that as well. I started trying to teach myself oil painting too during the last main lockdown, so probably midway last year, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, like you were saying before, I sort of dabbled in sculpture as well, and tried to sort of do a bit of everything at once, and got a little bit too overwhelmed. So now I've sort of cut back, and I've just been sort of trying to push color theory and to experiment a bit with that stuff, and using familiar subject matter and fusing the pop culture stuff into it meant that it was a bit easier to have something there that was structured and that was recognizable, but also, you could turn it and twist it and have a bit of a play with it and make it fun. So
Absolutely.
I suppose that's what I'm trying to push at the moment.
Yeah, I think definitely. I agree with you right there. Having something familiar, which is what's great about pop culture, right? Is it's something you can pick something that you like, that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, that that it's supposed to look a certain way, and I think there's a bit of ease in that. But having been able to put your own spin on it as well, so you can still be creative with it, is definitely I've found anyway, especially getting into oils, is definitely that made the difference in terms of getting back into oil painting. Was swapping to a reference that I was passionate about. And there's probably only one other person I know that's as passionate about Star Wars as me, and he's in this room tonight. So,
is that me?
Yes, that's right, Mitch. It is you.
Yeah.
We won't get into your
No, that's an in joke.
Hey Carly, I do want to ask, can you show some of your artwork too? That we haven't done any screen sharing yet.
That's what I was. That was going to be next. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Hold on. Let me set it up. Hopefully this works. Okay. Is that working?
You are shared. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
this
there we
is-
go.
This is how far I've gotten now. I started this
Awesome.
just as we were starting to do the stream. Yeah, so I guess my process with creating my sticker sheets or even just like designing tattoos in general is like looking for that perfect reference, kind of like what Mitch was talking about before. Like you kind of find something that has like that perfect angle and the perfect like reflections and stuff like that, and you're just like, okay, yeah, that's the one that I'm gonna work from. Well, I feel like I should probably show one of my finished sticker sheets so you can get a better idea of like how the end product actually ends up looking like. So this is my most recent one. I released this a few weeks ago. So yeah, I kind of I plan out all of the pictures that I'm wanting to do. So just list like a bunch of different files that are all down the side with the images that I want to find. And then, just go and find reference pictures. And a lot of the time I do have to like morph and make my own reference pictures, especially to like get this like cutesy kind of style and get the proportions that I want.
So how do you go about that? Is it, I know obviously there are like larger heads, larger eyes, like what is it about that style? But how do you create that style?
So with like the little chibi characters in general, I reference, there's these like anime kind of figures. They're called like Nendoroid figurines. And I'll get a thing up on Google. And so they kind of almost do the work for me. Like, so they have like the larger heads and the smaller bodies and stuff, but even still like, I will adjust them even more. So like I make the bodies like even smaller and like keep the heads like larger. And then I completely change the shapes of like the eyes and like the mouths and stuff like that to fit within my style. But yeah, I tend to reference like whatever Nendoroid character that I can find with a pose that I want to reference, and then just like map out like the rough shape of it, and then slowly build up like all of the details that I want to add into it to change the character, if that makes sense. I kind of don't know how to explain it. There's just like certain little things that I do to like, just make things a bit cuter or just a bit more cartoony and stuff like that, while also just adding my own pizzazz to it. With like my go-to is like the sparkly love heart eyes, especially.
I mean the long lashes too. I mean,
and the long lashes, always long lashes. Like everyone, like clients, like people that I work with and stuff, is very rare that you find a tattoo that I've done that has eyes and it doesn't have eyelashes. Like even like more male like characters, it's like a struggle to not put eyelashes on them. And even like I look at like my husband's like tattoo designs, for instance, and he'll be drawing like a lady head, and I'll roast him because he hasn't given her eyelashes.
That's awesome. So how being a sticker, or the idea of it becoming a sticker sheet, how do you I guess show a bit of restraint or control in how much detail to add or not to add? Is that just something based around your sort of tattoo style, something you're used to designing? That's how you do your tattoos, so you kind of do your sticker sheets along, it's something that kind of comes out to be natural, or something you have to think about a bit more when you turn, with the idea of sticker sheet?
I feel like because like with my tattoos in themselves, they almost kind of look like stickers. So it was a really easy transition into designing stickers. Like with making the sheets, like it's a lot better to a degree because I can go hard on the detail if I want to, like little tiny like font or like little tiny like shines and details and stuff like that. Whereas obviously with tattooing, there's only certain things that you can do for it to like age well and stuff like that. But yeah, like both of them, like they go quite hand in hand with each other, because yeah, that's just how I design tattoos in general. Sometimes I do go like a little bit like too hard with the stickers, and I just go like hectic with the detail. And then I get people like asking if they can get it tattooed. I'm like, oh, it's not gonna look like this though. But
That's awesome.
yeah, it's real cool. Like I'm definitely glad that throughout lockdowns and stuff that I've still somewhat been able to like continue drawing like tattoos designs while like turning it into something else. And it's
that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very good. All right. I am going to keep a bit of painting.
I pulled some stuff down from the wall for some show and tell if you guys want to have a look at sort of how things finished out, and might sort of give a bit of an insight into some of, I guess, like what I'll do once I get it past this stage that I've got going with the pencil work.
Awesome. So one question I was going to ask you before, actually, Jack. So you start by just using a grey lead pencil and sort of mapping out the whole thing. Is that something done on a light box, or you're doing it all straight out of your hand or handle?
I definitely cheat. I do sort of a lot of rough preliminary sketches. I'll see if I actually had some floating around. I'm not sure if I'm sorry, my room is an absolute mess, so I've got a lot of crap everywhere. I can't find it. I had a series of thumbnails that I did of Charizard that sort of go different poses and stuff. But sometimes with these, I'll just get it to an outline level where I'm really happy with it, and other times I'll want to do more of a shading study, so I've got a bit better of an idea of the values and just loosely map them in. So this was sort of roughly what I did for this piece. But I had a bit of a play around with the hat, and I didn't like the way it looked, and it just felt a little bit too corny. So got rid of that. But I've been doing a whole bunch of these lately, or when in between procrastinating. So like we've got the old mate Slomes Mackenzie from Futurama.
Old mate. Yep.
And a bit of Henson.
I think I crossed over to you doing that one
Love
live.
it.
You went live a few times with that one.
Oh, it's incredible. Look at that.
Thanks, man. So we're going in at the end, and like the cactuses were done with acrylics, and so I wanted them to be quite flat and to have that sort of like a contrasting values and versus that sort of rounded lighting of the forms of the hand and stuff. So trying to do with that, and then loosening up with some sort of ink splattering and stuff like that. And I love marbling. I got into doing a lot of that when I was at school. But just sort of playing around with graphic elements and trying to sort of find different ways to sort of push certain parts of the image forward and make it more interesting and dynamic, which in part I think like it does translate across for me with the way that I tattoo. But sometimes certain things we all know, like through the 90s, a lot of tattooing without outlines, or late 80s, early 90s with the whole wave of Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo and all those guys. They brought in that sort of ideal, why can't we tattoo without outlines? And so a lot of that stuff, like I will use elements that are sort of a bit more fluid and loose for backgrounds and stuff like that. But I always want to have plenty of black and outline and definition where it's sort of needed, especially like if I'm moving into doing more sort of color realism stuff, which has been becoming a bit more prominent now. But there's a few different sort of approaches there. But it is sort of like I guess I'm trying to find that play again, as well as like still sort of enjoying the subject matter and keeping it true to how I want it to look.
Yeah. But certainly, I love the way you've gone about doing the acrylics to your backgrounds and keeping that sort of flat look, being able to bolster and create layers that way. Like there's so much more depth. I think they're using the flat colors and things like that for your background. It's very clever. It's really cool. Also, like how far you push your I guess your contrast and your tonal values with each thing, and also picking the piece you're working on now. Picking out, purples and golds, right? Like they they just work so well together.
Mm.
So using that for your shadows.
Oh, I'm a sucker for the 90s palette, and you might not be able to see it in the so well, but I've been mixing in some cooler tones in sort of the jawline, and sort of trying to use that to sort of bring things forward and push things back. But a lot of this stuff is experimental for me. Like doing it here will, it's something that I can bring into tattooing later on. So it's good to sort of, I guess, like have this stuff in the background as an example, even just to show clientele and just to say, look, it's going to look a little bit weird when we start. It might look like I'm giving you a tattoo that's entirely pink, but long term, it's going to be, like a really rich brown fox, or a deer or something, but it's just going to have this purple here to begin with to bring that brown out. It's
a hard thing to try and convince people of sometimes.
It's definitely. I mean, I'd be terrified if I didn't, if I wasn't like the person behind the wheel and someone turned around and said, "Oh, I'm just going to throw a bit of purple into this thing that's made brown." Yeah, it's scary, but I guess we're very fortunate in the sense that people are pretty clued in, and people are much more open to layering and doing like multiple passes on pieces, and the knowledge has sort of grown for the common person, which has been great. So it's definitely helped us.
Do you find yourself doing that quite a bit with your tattoos, like multiple sessions in terms of layering, not in terms of just completing a piece, but
I would say yes. I definitely I've been very lucky. I get to do quite a bit of sort of large scale work and a lot of illustrative stuff and a lot of different styles. I've been very fortunate. Like a lot of clientele are, that they've got really sort of, I tattoo people from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of, and they have different things in mind for what they like. And so I get this variety, I'm like a kid in a candy store every day going to work, it's something different every day, but it means that, I get to sort of experiment on the skin a little bit more. And I have that opportunity to come back and work on things. And people are pretty cool with it. I mean, obviously they don't love the pain element, but they're very open to allowing me to come back and just say, let's just spend a little bit more time in this area, make it a little bit nicer. It's going to look better. It's going to last longer. I think I've been very spoiled. A lot of people, that I speak to don't sort of have the good fortune that I've had in the time that I've been tattooing to sort of have people that are that sort of open-minded. But I've been very lucky, I guess.
Absolutely. It's definitely something I do a lot more of these days, and implementing a lot more, like the ability to, most of my, especially a realism piece, I'll be almost from the get-go. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to that sort of stuff. I sort of let people know sort of straight off the bat that at the end there's going to be not even at the end, but throughout the process there will be times where I'll be going back through things and refining things, and I kind of set my tattoos up that way a bit more now. And it probably started, I had a conversation a few years ago with Ben K, DBK, as his name on Instagram. And he did a little bit of, he's done some work at our studio. And while he was here, we were talking about it, and I was sort of quizzing him about, his multi-day tattoos, and he sort of said a similar thing. He used to sort of work and have this expectation that to have to try and get the whole piece finished 100% as it is, which is obviously a different thing when you're traveling. In a different country, you're sort of in a position where you sort of have to, but whenever he can, especially when he's at home, he will set up his tattoos. There might still be multiple sessions, but he won't try and push out a 12-hour, 10-hour tattoo just so it's done and then have to go back through it anyway. He'll plan to do it in multiple sessions and give himself the opportunity to be able to refine things. From that, after hearing that, it's nice to hear when somebody else is doing something you're thinking should be maybe something you want to do. But I think I am very much like Mitch in the way that I want, as we all are, You know, you want your customers to be happy, and you know, tattoos aren't always a quick and easy process, and I don't want any of my customers to walk out, you know, with a rush job. So I try and sort of almost allow myself a bit of freedom to be able to, you know, go back through when I need to, or allow myself the fact that it's probably going to happen. You know, that I'm probably going to go back through just about every tattoo I do and layer. You know, it's not about, you know, touch-ups or fixings or anything, but it's just, you know, there's only so far we can push the skin, obviously. So it's nice to be able to go, especially, you know, fine details. There's only so much you're going to be able to get in a, you know, tattoo. So it's nice to be able to, I don't know, have a bit of transparency with your client, and let them know from the get-go that we're going to be going back through things and layering and I mean, I'm the same as you, Jack. I've got great customers that are like, oh cool, yeah, awesome, yeah, you know, do whatever you need to do to make it look awesome. So, you know, it's great. You know, there's no expectation that they're going to walk in and walk out with a 100% completed.
When you
know,
when you say, sorry, Dan, when you say like you and what Jack was saying, like you're lucky with customers and that, I think a lot of it just comes down to the attitude as well. You know, you guys are obviously pretty approachable in that, and if you're honest and upfront and have that kind of personality that people are receptive to, I think that makes a big difference as well. You know, it's not just from an artistic point of view. It's just like you as a person when they walk in the door. If they feel comfortable with you, then they're going to trust you, and that in turn means that you can have those multiple sessions and they're not going to be freaked out about it and that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hit the nail on the head,
it's
sure.
It's something I think about a lot with you know, even just sort of people who are new to getting tattooed. I've been like, I don't want to sort of jump up and say I know everything. I definitely don't. I'm a baby in terms of this vocation or this craft, but you know, I've always sort of in the back of my head, I've been quietly sort of writing stuff, like writing, I guess, like an education for clientele, you know, like you know, sort of passages, and I want to include photos of healed work and in progress pieces where it'll sort of say, you know, like this style of work, you know, it does need layering and this is why, and sort of not necessarily spell out the whole process for people, to make it a bit more open and have that transparency there without sort of having to put someone on the spot and say, like, have them in the studio and be like, oh, I'm doing this today, by the way. You know, they have time, they can get a bit more comfortable with the idea that this thing is going to, you know, be a bit longer than maybe they imagined. And yeah, I think long term, I'd love to sort of make that like a public thing. But it's, I'm still in my head trying to sort of get it together.
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea, man. Like, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just having, you know, your customer, you know, being able to relate sort of where their tattoo is at in relation to, you know, that guide as such, and then I go, okay, yeah, we're at this point, and they're not suddenly thinking, why is this spot not done? Why is this not done? You know, why is there details missing here that are supposed to be in the reference? And, you know, being able to have that something for the customer to look straight back at and know where their tattoo process is at is actually really cool.
Yeah, I guess it's the double-edged sword of you know, having things being so public with, you know, social media, TV shows and all that stuff. Like, not only is it opened people up to tattooing and made it such an accessible thing for them, and it's helped them and given them knowledge that's empowering, but it also, unfortunately, there is the flip side where we have a lot of misinformation out there, or people make uneducated assumptions about certain things. And so I suppose it's always about trying to manage expectations of people and make sure that they're comfortable in some way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's never one blanket answer for anyone's tattoo or process, or, you know, how one artist you know, approaches something totally different to how somebody else approaches it as well. And also everyone's tattoo design, style, skin, you know, there's so many variables. So I guess, you know, having, like you just said, the double-edged sword, you know, what what one person experienced and tell somebody else, naturally their expectations change. So it is definitely a double-edged sword, but I think the idea of getting, you know, a bit of general advice out there, like you mentioned, having a bit of a guide for people is a great idea. I think that's really cool.
I wanted to touch on what you were just speaking about before, and it was such a huge point is your communication with your clients, your upfrontness about what they can expect, you know, what you can provide for them. Like, I think just honest and upfront is you know, is something that it's not a skill that's often like talked about, you know, when you're
true.
going through tattooing, but it will absolutely change the dynamic and potentially make your work all that much better because everyone's on the same page.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just
Go for it, Mitch.
sorry, go. I was going to say, it's kind of just human nature, isn't it? It's not necessarily specific to tattooing. You could apply that to any industry, anything you're doing. You know, people, although the client just wants to feel that they're included in the process, that they're not being railroaded, that they don't need to know the ins and outs of every single little thing necessarily, but just to feel like they're included in the process. And you see it time and time again. People will come in with their, like, on the offensive a bit. They'll be acting a bit weird, or they'll be saying, no, I don't like that, or what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. And once you can put their mind at ease and have that little stuff like what you were saying, Jack, you know, just a bit of honesty and feel like they're, you know, in control a little bit and have a voice, then they tend to open up to you a bit more and allow you to do your job more freely in the end.
Yes, spot on. Yeah, I generally find once they feel like you're working with them rather than sort of almost telling them what's happening. Most of the time, you generally find you end up doing things the way you want to do them.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of communicating to them what you want to do, or, you know, the best way to give them the tattoo that they want, you know. And I've, you know, I think I've really experienced too many times where you haven't, you know, if you've communicated and that's the way you want to go about it, and sort of set their mind at ease and include them, you know, in the process as best you can. There's obviously, like you mentioned, Mitch, there's going to be things where they don't probably need to know all the ins and outs. They're not going to need to know whether you're using a 13 curve mag or a, you know, 15 straight mag. You know, they don't need to know that, but just them being involved and being, you know, or at least getting the information they need is definitely super important.
That's it, man. Nine times out of 10, it's just they're just nervous. You know, they just feel like they just want a good tattoo. They don't want to be taken advantage of. And once you talk to them, you know, on a person-to-person level and just explain little things, it only takes, you know, 10 minutes to sit down with them and chat away about the process a little bit and connect with them. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll let you do more than they're expecting to let you do. You know, they're like, oh, well, you're obviously in control here. You're in charge. Now I trust you. And I think it was mentioned before, like, I think it's a part of tattooing that's very, it's not really talked about much, just the talking with the client and that. But like, I know that, like, I've got awesome clients now from back in New South Wales and down here as well that are good mates now, and they just trust you. That I've got people that just say, do whatever tattoo you want. You know, I know you well enough. You can just do what you want to do. And I think that all just stems from just forming a good relationship with them and being open and honest.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Josh, I want to have a look at where you are at with what you're doing.
Let me see if I can fix my camera a little bit. I know that I'm trying to grab some details trying to get the best look here, but basically, I know it keeps going in and out of focus on us, but as I'm working through, going back to what I was talking about earlier, some of my heroes are poster artists like Drew Struzan. And, you know, something that I've studied his work, you know, intensely and been looking at it all my life. And
that's
so
phenomenal,
I
right?
feel like I like to emulate a little of that feel that just, there's a lot of other artists too that Jason Palmer is a new guy.
Yes.
Paul
Yeah.
Shipper is great, and these are all guys that just also, subscribe to the school of Drew Struz.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm using a digital format but I'm trying to make it look as analog as possible. So I'm
Yep.
switching a lot between, I'm using pencils like HB pencil. I'm using some chalk. I'm using also, you got to get some splatters and stuff in there as
Yeah.
well. And so I'll use flicks and splatter and kind of play around with it and not be too worried about everything being smooth. Instead, trying to give it some texture and give it some life. So as I go through, I'm allowing that texture to kind of, I don't know, just make that surface feel like it's got some grit to it, and
Yep.
just by
Yep.
those are my, that's my big arsenal though, is when I'm doing this kind of stuff, is pencils, airbrush splatters, maybe some chalk, and kind of just trying to always just keep it loose. I think that's
Yeah.
like a, not being too especially with digital, like if I make a line and I don't like what I did, I could obviously just step it back. So, the advantage there to just experiment, play around, have some fun with it.
Yep. And you
but
work
yeah.
across, you got obviously got a lot of layers going on there.
I'm
Or you
actually
want
right
to try-
now for this piece, because there's not a lot going on in this piece. I don't have a lot of
Yep.
layers.
Okay.
I'm just kind of like drawing on top. What I will do when I get to a stage where I want to start messing around with maybe some more texture and more splatters and stuff like that, I'll throw that on another layer just so I can play with opacity and not be so, not be married to it while I'm messing around. But yeah, for
I guess
this,
you're also not that way. You're not also blending out all the textures and tones you put in there as well already.
right.
Happy
Because
with.
yeah, if I'm liking where it's going, then I'll mess around with some additional layers on top. But also, since we're this is just a for fun piece here with
Yeah.
while we chat, so I'm not going too overboard with layers. I'm just kind of letting it happen. And but yeah, no, it's a lot of this work that I like to do digitally. Again, I like to kind of play with that Drew Struzan loose hand done feel. But
Yeah.
obviously when doing tattoos, I'm not going to end up doing that. I'm going to make it more realistic and more smooth. So I feel like
Yep.
doing this type of art is therapeutic in a way, because I don't have to worry about it being so smooth and so perfect. And
Does much carry across between the two, or not really?
not really.
So they're quite different.
They're quite
different, but
I think the only thing that really comes across is working with color theory and stuff like that, because I definitely
layout
layout, color theory, getting a chance to try some stuff out digitally and see how those tones work. I know it's just not showing up on the camera very well, but even playing with there's a light source of slightly more blue in his face on this side, and then going back to grays on this side. So that's just something that I haven't translated that color theory to a piece, and next time, because there will be a next time that I'll be doing Darth Maul again, I can play around with something like that.
Yeah, awesome. I would say your likelihood of doing a Darth Maul is probably in the next week. But...
Oh yeah, I know. Darth Maul every day. Darth Maul and Darth Vader's are my go-to guys. I do a lot of them. Never bored.
I'm never bored of them, but I don't do a lot of Darth Mauls. It took me a long time to do my first one. And then once I started getting, that gritty kind of brush you're using there is really cool. So it just kind of dirties up that cloak a bit.
Mm.
Yeah,
I really like the brush. Is it a pencil brush you've used for that really bright red kind of loose slashing highlight along the left-hand side of the cloak?
Oh yeah, for the little
sort of like it's almost got that lightsaber kind of chaotic kind of look to it.
Yeah. It's like, and again, there's also something I feel like, some sort of rim light or something from a saber somewhere. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
yeah, just again, just having fun right now, just kind of playing around with stuff, seeing how I like to let stuff sit. Yeah, playing with texture. A lot of this is just flicker and splatter texture. And yeah, it's just, again, I try not to overthink it too much.
Yep.
And I mean, and I've kind of started to do that. I've been doing realism for a long time now. So even when I approach my tattoos, I try to have a plan, but then not overthink it too much. Kind of just, go with some gut instincts and for choices and for colors
Having a
and
bit.
yeah, like just kind of taking a step back. And I feel like that's when my work started to feel more like my own work, and rather than just trying to emulate, maybe another portrait artist or something,
Yep.
So
Yep. What are some key things on that note that you go to when doing a realism tattoo? What are some things you absolutely must do for you? Not, like, do you
like
find
for
you
just
need
like
to use a lot of, so to get your tattoos to come out the way you would like them to.
I think it's a lot it's like it starts with image selection, like the right reference out. I don't know who mentioned it earlier, was talking about when you find that
Carly,
perfect.
I think started it.
Yeah, when you find that perfect reference and you're just like, that's it, it's going to work. And then I do all of my composition on the iPad. I can pull up one I just did recently, just to see some of the layers. This was a design I completed recently, over 2 days.
Yeah, sort of. It's cool.
But I've got so many different layers, from hands, different faces, different ships, just some background painting on, like it's all kinds of layers to put the composition. So image selection is really key. And I think with portraits, I have a lot of black in my tattoos.
That was going to be my next point, actually.
I have a lot of black in my tattoos. Like anywhere I can find a reference that has, like, if someone's face is half in shadows or something, I will use it, because it's going to make it bolder, make it last longer, and then B, I think just more dynamic that way, because then you've got your lights kind of contrast against the darks, and it just makes for an overall better tattoo. So yeah, it's like image selection is a must. I've got to have some shadows in there, and then it's usually like I like to play off different color sources, light sources. Another one of my painter heroes was the Hildebrandt brothers, Tim and Greg Hildebrandt, and they would always, look at any of their stuff. There's always a very harsh color difference from one side. There'll be like a green light on one side and a yellow light on the other side, or it's just, it makes all their stuff look so dynamic. And so I try to do that too, is just kind of interesting color choices, not in heavy contrast.
Josh, will you adjust much of your contrast and color and that kind of stuff in the design phase? Like considering where the tattoo is going to go on somebody's body. Like if someone says, I want, this piece on the outer forearm, and that it's going to have a lot more sun and it's going to be a bit more tanned, will you account for that in your design process, or do you just kind of adjust that on the day, get the design looking good on the iPad and just adjust your contrast in that on the day?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's kind of on the fly once everything's kind of set in, and then I can kind of make those choices. But I think in my design process, I am very much aware of, like I said before, heavy duty contrast, lots of black that I know is going to be in there. And then, if I feel like I need to adjust my color palette for the area, or just the person's skin type. Sometimes I don't know what shade my client is, and I do color portraits on all shades. That's another thing. Adjusting to skin tone is something that I kind of have to just do on the fly. But I feel like if that contrast is there, it's going to hold.
Yeah. So it's already, like, because you've already got so much contrast, it's going to work on more tanned forearm skin or something, regardless.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, but there are definitely some adjustments that I'm doing, in the moment. even
find
just
you take a lot of your mid, say in that example, sorry to cut you off, but you find you take a lot of mids out and just work mid-tones out, work mostly on darks and lights, or
yeah, like maybe sometimes just like have just the almost the bare amount of mids in between your highlights, just to give it, still make it three-dimensional, but not trying to have 16 different shades from light to dark, and just kind of be a little bit bolder. Yeah, I'll definitely do that often, which again, maybe it's, for me, I don't think it's necessarily as like super photorealistic as like someone like David Corden or somebody that's replicating it down to the T, every subtle shade. I try to go with a bit more of a painterly feel. I've been calling it painterly realism for a while now, so
I might steal
That's
it.
cool, man.
What's everyone's thoughts on using a digital reference image alongside you while you're tattooing versus a printed image? Because I listened to a guy a while back who was adamant that he tried to use an iPad for his reference and had that next to him while he was working, and throughout the day the lighting that was in the screen changed, and it affected how he was working, and he was really unhappy with the results. Do you guys have you had a play with that, or do you think about that often?
Me personally, or Dan, you go ahead.
I started using a digital reference for a while, and I do at times, but actually swap back to like a paper reference for a while. Predominantly because I found with the digital one and the ability to zoom and do all sorts of stuff, it kind of, again, a little bit like when I think too much on oil painting, I get bogged down in trying to replicate things more than they need to be, and it took away a little bit of the artistic side of it, and
it overcomplicates it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I began to not trust my tattooing ability and was just relying too heavily on the reference. You just got bogged down at, okay, what's the reference of that? What's that got in there? Next thing you've got, your iPad wrapped up so you can zoom in and out and look at details that you can't zoom in and out on a tattoo. So sort of why do that? And I think it sort of relates back to what Josh said a little bit too, and that's the ability to sort of change things, and what Mitch was touching on, based on where on the body it is, skin tone, things like that. I found I was just getting a little bit too robotic and just going, okay, well, that's the red on the image, that's the red on, yep, that matches that, that's what's going in there. And then I wasn't spending as much time just looking at the tattoo itself, it's just bogging me down a little bit. So I went back to a paper reference, and it just freed me up a little bit to do what I know. Just tattoo the way I know how to tattoo. And,
Cool.
I think, I mean, I'm probably a little bit similar to Josh in the fact that mine's not. I don't do hyperrealism. It's very much sort of like that. So quite style to it too. And I was probably blending that out of my artwork a little bit by doing that, which just I didn't love. So yeah, it's a constantly evolving thing for me. I don't mind a digital reference. Sometimes I think it's great, but in terms of realism, I'm trying to steer away from it a little bit and just tattoo like I know how to do, instead of being guided by an image that I can zoom in and out of. Josh, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I know what you mean though. The ability to be able to zoom like crazy while you're working is tempting. So I do just try to avoid doing that. But I like the digital reference. And this is like the only advantage I think it really has is when I'm working on somebody and I like my reference to be in the same angle as the piece in front of me. And if I'm shifting them real quick, the ability that I can quickly just go zip and and then back again, you know what I mean? Just like it spin a little bit. Like,
yeah, that's definitely
That, but I do, like you said, I try to avoid worrying about zooming in too much. Again, it was going back to, like I was saying, about trying to kind of just let it, trust in your abilities and let your choices just kind of happen. I'm a lot happier with the pieces in the end. And so I'm the same way. I'm not going to be zooming in to see what, like, this little, like, tiny speck of an eyeball is going to have when I'm not even going to tattoo it.
I suppose that's one thing that's really cool about like painterly realism is that people are able to, you're interpreting the image more than just Xeroxing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd set you apart as well from a lot of other realism artists too, I feel like, because you're putting your own spin and pizzazz on it, and that's what helps you stand out.
100%. That's what I was saying. I didn't feel like my pieces actually felt like, unique and, solely mine until I kind of took a step back and just learned to just trust in, in what and what you can do and your abilities. And then, people then respond to that, and
Totally.
And, I'm lucky to have a lot of clientele that, they're already very familiar with my work. And like, I'll do whole sleeves. And basically the only thing the client tells me is like the 6 or 7 characters they're getting, and that's it. And then like, they don't see artwork until they come in, and like, they're just 100% happy. We have to talk a little bit more. And I feel like being a pop culture artist, I try to be as knowledgeable about everything, but sometimes I'll have to go and research an anime or something I'm not familiar with. But the client can trust in the fact that I am going to understand, the pop culture reference they want, and I know how to deliver it for them. And I'm really, really lucky that just to have people that do that have that trust and faith in it, that it can just, they can, hop on a flight with never seeing a piece of artwork, and be totally comfortable with that. I'm very, very lucky for that.
Is that how a lot of you guys work, where you don't show the design to your clients until the day of, or do you wait until or do you show them beforehand? Sorry.
I think it changes from client to client and your relationship with them. For me anyway, I find that some people need to see every detail, and other people are completely trusting. So I think, for me anyway, it just comes down to the client and what they're like. You figure that out in the consultation process. And if they're like, yep, awesome, I'm really keen, you can show them, a rough image that you might be basing it off, and you just basically work off them. I don't think there needs to be a set of rules. Like, I show them 1 week beforehand, I send them the second draft, and I don't know that you need to follow direct rules like that. I don't know what you other guys think of that.
Absolutely.
I'm similar to you, Mitch. I mean, it depends on the tattoo itself or the design itself. It depends on the client. There's a few things there, but I'm just fluid with that. I don't have set rules. If it's something I feel needs to happen, I'll do it. But it all comes down to communicating and how your customer feels about it all as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Carly, I want to jump onto what you're doing again. So quick, because we are sucking up time. I mean, we can go for as long as we sort of want, but we have actually been on a lot longer than before we have. But I just
realized it's been an hour and a half.
It has.
It's so fast.
I know, it's crazy. Go through maybe just a little bit about your brush choices, if there's things you prefer to do, like we did with Josh before, just a little bit about sort of what, your layering and things like that. What can you tell us about what you're doing now? It's come a long way. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. I figured that I'd change the camera angle because, hey, we can only screen share one screen at a time. So it's like, I don't think people want to see my face the whole time. I think they more so care about the drawing. I use a program called Clip Studio. I know a lot of people tend to go with Procreate. A lot of the artists that I know tend to go with Procreate. And I just could never wrap my head around it for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, Manga Studio I just find has like a lot, I don't know, it just has a lot more like stuff that you can do with it. And then with the brushes that I use, so when I'm doing, so I'll hide these layers. I do like a sketch first, as if I'm like doing an actual pencil drawing. So yeah, I draw in like a pink pencil, make it feel like that I'm still drawing on paper and stuff like that, get like the sketches in and stuff. And then I build off from there. So I just use the rough pencil that's in, like, it's like the pre-made one that's already in Clip Studio. And then when I'm doing my outlines, my go-to is the turnip pen, because you can get like, when you flick like your pen out, you can get like a nice like point to it and stuff like that. So it almost feels like, yeah, you're using like fine liners and stuff. With my style, like I like everything has to be precise. So it's weird. Like I try and be loose, and I try and like make things like, I don't know, a little bit less than perfect, but then like something like my eye twitches and I'm like, nah, it has to be perfect. So I'll be like redoing the same line like 40 times. So I'm kind of glad that like the stream wasn't watching while I was doing the outline, because oh my god, just doing like this line along here, I did it so many times. And then yeah, so when I'm like with this process, for instance, and I'm doing my outlines, like I'll do the black outlines first, and then I'll switch to a different layer, and I'll add in some like colored outlines. Like for instance, with this design, where's the layer? So they're all on the same layer now, but like you can see how I've got like the dark brown like for the liquid, and then like an orangey color for the bubbles and stuff, just to give it like a little bit of depth and dimension. I do that in my tattoos as well. Like I like to have some outlines that are in color and some that are in like the bold black, just for that nice contrast. Yeah, just to give like different like textures and depth and whatnot. And then with my coloring process, I have every single color on a different layer, just because I find that I get like a smoother effect out of it. So like with, yeah, the bottle, for instance, so I have like a flat like base layer, and then like I build off with like this darker brown, and then I go an even darker brown to create like the depth. And then I'll like slowly go over the top of it with like other layers, and like bring in like more shadows, or like even highlights as well. Yeah,
Some textures in there as well.
yeah.
Fancy.
Yes, yeah.
That post-apocalyptic vibe to that label.
Exactly. Well, yeah, couldn't have it like too pristine, I guess.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so, and that's the best thing about using like these programs as well, is yeah, having all the different brush types to be able to create these different textures. Like this one is just like the spray bottle that they have in Clip Studio. And then yeah, just like using like a variety of different colors to create like the depth and stuff like that. Yeah, like with talking about, sorry, go.
I was just going to say, with creating all your colors on multiple layers, it gives you a bit more freedom with editing or making changes. Is that sort of a big reason why
absolutely.
we use multiple layers?
Yeah, like even like before, like while you were talking with other people, like some of these browns, just on the fly, I like used that whole layer to like be able to change the shade like how I wanted it to. So like, for instance, like, yeah, so with this darker brown, I was able to just like go in there and like I could just like change the color like however I want, and it won't affect any of the other colors. I just find it a lot easier doing it that way. It's the worst though whenever I accidentally like do everything on the one layer. Oh, it's the worst. And you've been doing it for
check your
so
layers,
long.
people. Always check your layers.
Yeah. The amount of times that I do like outline stuff on the rough sketch layers is just beyond me, and I'm sure you guys can very much relate as well in that respect.
Definitely not the only person that's ever done that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm really like stoked that like digital drawing is a thing. Like before I got my iPad and stuff, like, and obviously just drawing like with a pencil on paper or like 1,000,001 freaking layers of paper. Like I always thought that using digital was like cheating, like, cause it's like, oh, but like, yeah, you could just like undo it so easy and stuff like that. But ever since I got into it like 4 years ago or whatever, it's just like, oh my God, like this is a game changer. Like, yeah, you can easily just like change things on the fly and stuff, but the amount that it like saves time is incredible. It's just it's such an awesome tool. Like I hardly ever draw like pencil on paper now, which I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but yeah.
I'm a big believer in, using the tool that helps you best create, like if that's what
definitely
motivates you to create, and if that's what motivates you to get out there.
There's no point
do your thing, then
no point in making it harder than it has to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the tools are there and it's easier and it makes a better result, then what do we, why not?
Exactly. Totally.
Sorry.
I haven't been like in the tattoo game for all that long, and I feel like all you guys probably have like many years on me. I've only been tattooing for about 6 years. So with like you guys seeing like how tattooing is progressing and stuff like that, like with the digital age especially, do you find it like with earlier like apprentices and stuff like that it's better for them to like draw digitally, or would you prefer them to draw like analog, I guess?
I think it's going to have to be a combination, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious we're moving in a pretty digital way. So, I mean, utilizing those tools to be able to make, I think I'm just a believer in giving your, up and comers all the tools they need to do to, all the tools available to, progress, and if that means digital, we are moving in the digital world, then great, but there's so many fundamentals that can be learned, sort of analog, if you want to call it that as well. I think a combination for me is kind of where my head's at, but it's sort of, whatever tools are out there to help people become better artists and better tattoos.
Yep. I think it's good for anyone learning or practicing or whatever to still use like pen on paper. I've had a few like apprentices and just other artists that I've spoken to and that, and we're all teaching and learning together and that. And I always like to do pen on paper because it's just that steady hand. There's a few things on the iPad where it can draw a straight line for you. It's very forgiving. You set the pressure where the pressure doesn't matter, then you can push as hard as you want or light as you want, and it'll make a perfect line.
Totally.
And even basic things like watching you work now, working between lines, you can color exactly like that outside the lines, and it'll fill it
exactly.
So I think it's good to have that, especially when you're learning, where
those fundamentals, right?
Pencil, exactly. Pencil or pen on paper, where if you push too hard, you're gonna break your pen, or make the tip blunt or whatever. It's going to damage the paper. I think it's good to do that, but design-wise, like Dan said, you definitely take advantage of all the technology that there is.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think at this little time when you're talking about like, the tactile and muscle memory side of tattooing, like the only thing that's going to get you up to speed on that front is to tattoo as much as you possibly can, like what your teacher was saying, Mitch.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing beats just that practice, like you said, just pen, pencil, or tattoo machine in hand, get into it. And just one other thing, brushing on what you were talking about before, where you're kind of making things up on the fly, that can be nerve-wracking when you're starting and you're thinking, oh, what do I do here, what do I do there? I'm kind of adjusting as I go. I think if you just follow those set basic rules, kind of like what I was talking about before, where I was reading the original Reinventing the Tattoo as an apprentice, there's certain rules that you should follow, gaps between lines and line weight and all that kind of stuff that's going to make a tattoo last over time. So you can feel free to experiment and change on the fly, but if you're nervous, just as long as you follow those set rules, you wouldn't make you wouldn't be like, oh, I'll do heaps of detail in here and make everything way too close together. That's just going to blur up and look terrible.
Yeah.
I think if you follow those fundamental rules, then you can experiment just as much as you want.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to, this is slightly different topic again, but I did just want to touch on what paper or board both Mitch and Jack are using today. What are you guys working on? Obviously, we've got Prismacolor, and are you pencils, right, Mitch?
Yeah, so I've just got what are they? Stedler, just basic pencils. I don't really have a fancy fancy setup. I even just went out and bought I think it's like a 140 or something GSM art book. It's just it's really basic. And I really, like, for 80% of this drawing, I've pretty much just used a 4B pencil. And another reason I wanted to do that is because I think that people who are practicing or watching this and learning, and that you don't have to have a full big set of pencils or anything like that. You can adjust your pressure with your pencil and just the sharpness. I'll use, say, a 4B pencil. I'll start by doing a very light little line with like a 3H pencil. Being careful not to push too hard, or it creates an indent that you can't color in the future. So it's just very light and a slightly blunt 3H. And then once I've got that little dot and my little line sorted out, I'll go back with my 4B. Any textures that I'm doing, the background here, I've got a slightly more grainy kind of texture. I've used a more of a blunt 4B pencil, and then as I get the like clearer and sharper details, I'll go to a slightly lighter, like an H, just a standard H pencil, and it gets a much smoother kind of effect, say in the face here, or like the reflection on the hood where I want it to be super smooth. And then just your finger, just a smudge with the finger. So I'm super basic with my setup. Like, I've got, what have I got here? I've got 3 pencils. I don't even have an eraser, and I've got a sharpener, and and that's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome.
Super technical here. Yeah, groundbreaking stuff.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, Mitch.
Yeah, well, I tried to make that sound as fancy as I could so that y'all don't laugh at me, but yeah, it's pretty basic setup here.
What about you, Jack? What are you working on? You got Prismacolors and things there, but you're on board.
So I've tried a few different brands of pencils over the years, and for like in terms of like color vibrancy and blending and stuff, because I'm quite heavy-handed with pencils, I have a tendency to snap them and stuff. So I need something that's forgiving as well as quite like it's oily, I suppose would be the best word for it. But so
that helps with blending, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. They're fantastic for that. But because I'm doing a lot of mixed media stuff, I need a paper that's both smooth, but also it's got that capacity to take a bit of a beating. So I use printmaking paper, which I started using a few years back, and I haven't really tried anything else since. Like if you're doing watercolor painting, watercolor paper is amazing for that. The variants and textures and stuff make it more forgiving for blends and stuff like that. But printmaking paper is just perfect for me because it really absorbs how sort of like rough I am with it, and you can do that a little bit more. So it's like, I think the brand's called, I ducked off to check before, it's Saunders Waterford printmaking stock. So it's I've been using it for a while now. It's just fantastic.
That's great. I do find with sort of using Prismacolors and things like that, I'm probably in a similar place where I'm quite heavy-handed. I use I like to blend a lot with pencils. So you definitely need a cardstock or paper stock that's going to put up with sort of the heavy-handed blending. I know earlier on, not long after I first got into tattooing, I did just an A4. I think I was on holiday and just felt like doing some drawing, and I did Prismacolor drawing of the Tenacious D Devil playing guitar. So Dave Grohl.
Amazing.
And by the time I'd finished, it was just done on A4 paper. I was just bored and just did it on plain A4 printer paper. And by the time I was finished, you could, I don't know. I think if you're, a stiff breeze would blow a hole in the paper. So it's,
glossy
so
and shredded.
like rice paper by the time I finished. But,
Yeah.
I definitely think getting or having a play around with some paper stock that sort of suits how sort of heavy or light-handed or the application is pretty important.
Even drawing on plywood's great. It depends on, I guess, the amount of tooth that the wood has, but
Yes.
floating boards and stuff can be really good to draw on with Prismacolors and the more sort of waxy pencils. Yeah, I've had a bit of a play around with a bit of everything really, but yeah, this paper it's the stuff. It's probably the perfect thing for what I do.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I experimented earlier on with sort of oil. When I was oil painting, I always used canvas. I felt like that's what everybody was using, so I had to use canvas. But these days, I actually really love the feedback I get on my brush using plywood. So that's what I'm painting on today, and I think I just love the firmness, the feedback you get back through your brush. It gives me the ability to control my pressure a little bit more. I'm a big fan of working on plywoods for different things.
Yeah, I feel like you
Well,
can
I've got the
definitely.
opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
No, go for it, mate.
I feel like you can definitely see a lot of oil painters playing with the spring of the canvas when they're doing like the alla prima style painting.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yep, it's definitely something I'd like to work towards, sort of doing a bit more of, but I'll wait till the old confidence gets there first. I might take this opportunity to just see if anyone out there has any questions or anything, just before, conscious of everyone's time tuning in, and you guys sort of throw on some time at this, but if there's any questions that anyone has out there that's tuning in on YouTube or any of the other services we're rocking today, please send them on through. Do our best to answer those. And do any of you guys have any questions? Our guests today, have any questions for anyone else in here and what they're doing, what they're working on?
Are you currently working, Josh? Like you're open and tattooing at the moment?
Yes. So we, the city of New Orleans was pretty locked down in the beginning. We were one of the epicenters at the beginning, mostly because of Mardi Gras in 2020 and all the millions of people that come to the city for that. It was rampant. So, and that's actually when I moved. I used to live closer to New York City, so I moved down, and the pandemic hit, and so it was like, oh, I'm finally here, new place, new city, and everything's shut down. And
Oh no.
so since I still have yet to experience Mardi Gras because it was canceled the beginning of the year. So they got us up and running after about, I think it was maybe closed for like 4 months. Then they had us open, but we've been bouncing back between, mask mandates. Then we didn't have a mask mandate. Then we have it again. So it's like we're just trying to catch up with whatever's being thrown at us. But the good thing is, I feel like people in the States are a little more comfortable with travel, and that's good for me because the majority of my clientele are travelers. They're coming in from other cities, and it was kind of a slow startup with people not really comfortable with flying, and now people are. So it's definitely it's opening up. It's for the artists at the shop that do walk-ins. There's finally starting to be a little bit more tourism, and because the shop I'm at is called Downtown Tattoos, and we are, for anyone who's ever visited New Orleans, we're located on Frenchman Street, which is essentially like locals version of Bourbon Street, where like you don't go to Bourbon Street when you live here, but you would go to Frenchman. And so normally it's a great shop for the walk-in guys. We have a private studio that I'm working out of right now, which is above the shop. And yeah, we're finally back up, and I feel like finally starting to see people rolling through, and you know, some amount of normalcy. Now conventions have popped back up here in the States. I haven't gotten to one
It's
yet.
been great to see.
But it was really, yeah, it's great to see them. The Villain Arts shows have been going on. I noticed pretty regularly. So yeah, it feels like that's, you know, step in the right direction. And but yeah, I just can't wait for some real international travel to open back up.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Oh, well, enjoy it for us, mate.
Yep. Yep. Hopefully not too much longer, guys. Be back doing what we love, and hopefully not too much further down the track. I can let you come and see you, Judge. That'd be nice.
I know, you've got to come.
Nice. It's been a long time coming. Maybe we can do some travel again. Or, see some West Coast buddies or something. All right. Well, if there is not, you guys have any other questions or anything, we might start to wrap up, I think.
We've had a lot of cool comments in the chat tonight, so thank you to everybody who's joined along. So really enjoying the cast so far.
Can we exclude Nick from the thanks? I feel like he deserves a special mention. Every live thing he takes a part in, he derails in some way.
Well,
We'll just have to,
big shout out to Dan for pulling us all together. I really
thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
really fun time.
Absolutely.
more than welcome.
Well done, Dan.
guys. My pleasure, guys. Hopefully this is the start of many. Obviously, I really appreciate the guys at Reinventing the Tattoo and Tattoo Now and Raw and all the sponsors for and Lauren, obviously, for doing everything they do and giving us the opportunity to be able to run something like this. It's been great to do, and yeah, we're hopefully going to team up and do a few more things in the future.
So I have a question for you guys too while we're on.
Yeah.
So for me, it is 10 o'clock at night. So I'm more close along the lines with Josh in the United States here. So do you guys ever kind of, while you're in your lockdown phases, do you connect with American artists or other artists? Because we do have a crew in the United States. We do like drawing groups sometimes. You guys film if you're, ever interested in checking out some of that stuff. I know that some of the viewers tonight are from around the world. So it is really unique that we can connect like this and stuff like that. But
yeah, it's a great platform for that, that's for sure. And since sort of being a little more familiar with the Reinventing the Tattoo sort of live streams, since I've been able to tune in and watch some of those, it's been great. And even just coming back through and having a look at that, the back catalogue of stuff's been really great. I've been chatting to some people across the world here and there, some as I can. Josh and I stay in contact a fair bit, which is cool. Talk about tattooing and Star Wars and the ways of the world. But it's definitely a platform like this is phenomenal for being able to get together, while we're unable to travel. That's for sure.
absolutely.
All right. Well, we might wrap it up there. I will once again just thank all of our guests for coming on. Josh, Mitch, Carly, Jack, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dan.
It's been awesome.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome having you guys
for
on.
having me.
A pleasure. And
Absolute pleasure, man.
we will have to do it again for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll tee something up and keep hopefully inspiring some people out there to jump on and do some artwork.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren.